I have commanded men in battle, so it's with a soldier's eye that I'm going to re-examine what happened on the Somme. The greatest test of my experience came during Britain's war with Argentina over the Falkland Islands, where I was a brigade commander. Then I had to make life and death decisions from, some might say, the relative safety of my command post. It's the job of a battlefield commander to send men to kill and perhaps to be killed, to achieve the aims of his ultimate masters, the politicians, who may be thousands of miles away. A general gives orders, but he carries out instructions too. That's why I'm fascinated by this battle, and how it's perceived today. It's hard to visualize the scale and ferocity of the fighting. Just on day one, there were 58,000 casualties, 19,000 of them killed. To put that in context, it's more than 5 times the total Allied ground force casualties on D-Day in World War II. During my command in the Falklands, I was under no illusions that casualties must be minimized, not just because that's the aim of any humane commander, but because of how it would play for the public and the politicians. The Somme was different, but not because British generals were incompetent or inhumane. I will examine why it proved so costly, how vast an operation it was in men and materiel, and in doing so, confront some of the myths that have developed over the years. The Somme region of France, roughly 100 miles due north of Paris, takes its name from the meandering river Somme. The gently rolling downland, dotted with small villages, looks much like a piece of England. Young British soldiers, most of them on foreign soil for the first time, felt strangely at home here. Peaceful now. On the morning of Saturday, July the 1st, 1916, this was a scene of massive activity, of excitement, probably of fear too, as 750,000 men waited for 0 hour to approach. So what were the British trying to achieve? That's as good a question today as it was 90 years ago. The battle was forced on the British, not by their enemies, but by their allies, the French. As 1916 approached, there was a crisis brewing in the Allied High Command, with the French C&C, General Joseph Joffre, demanding that the British get stuck in on the Western Front. So far, it had been the French who'd been doing most of the fighting, and most of the dying.
In the whole of the war, with a population 7 million less than the British, the French have twice as many military deaths. So they have lost an awful lot of men. The French have a huge army compared to the British. The British army is regular, it's all volunteer, it's tiny, it's an imperial gendarmerie. The French have got universal military service. Now, they are constantly accusing the British of not pulling their weight. They are saying to the British, why aren't you getting involved in offensives? You're not attacking enough. British riposts that there were 2 million sailors in the Royal Navy keeping the seas safe for all the Allies really wasn't of much concern to the French. And certainly the battles that the British had taken part in, to us, were enormous. The Battle of Loos in September 1915 was a big thing. To the French, it was a mere skirmish. We were using one army. They had 5 armies involved in Artois and Champagne. So as far as they were concerned, they've got to push out the German invader. If they don't, the government will fall. The British would have preferred to wait, build up their army, train their army, equip their army, and then, when everything was ready, strike a blow that will end the war.
Britain argued that it would be madness to rush raw recruits into the front line before they were trained. But what the French planned for them was even worse. Joffre wanted the Somme to be what he called a bataille d'usure, a battle of attrition. He promised 40 French divisions, that's 500,000 men, who would have outnumbered the British at the Somme by nearly 2 to 1. And the battle would commence in August 1916. In blunt terms, it would be a killing match, the aim to lock horns with the Germans and kill as many as possible.
It's the French concept of attrition, let's just kill Germans, and if they killed 1 million Germans and the Germans killed 1 million minus 1 Frenchman, then the French win. Now, winning by 1 wicket has never been part of the British way of waging war. That's not the way we fight wars. We can't afford these huge casualties. We don't do that. We will try and take objectives that can be taken. And effectively, the two do diverge at this point.
The general given the task of managing the greatest British offensive of the war so far was this man, Sir Douglas Haig. Often accused of being the principal donkey, the judgment of history can be fickle.
Haig has been grossly maligned. I mean, this is the man who took a tiny British army, had to deploy it, train it, fight it, until in 1918 it's the only army on the Western Front capable of defeating the Germans militarily in the field. It's Haig's army that does it, it's Haig's victory. And at the end of the war, everybody believed it was Haig's victory, both the public and his soldiers. And indeed, when he died, several 100,000 of his old soldiers marched past the body. He was revered, he was seen as the man who'd won the war.
Haig didn't believe this was the right time to throw his men into battle, nor the right place. There were far better strategic targets elsewhere. At this point in the war, German U-boats posed the greatest threat to Britain's survival, by threatening to cut her shipping lifeline, bringing food and war materials from overseas. If the U-boat bases in Belgium could be overrun, it would strike a major blow. What would winning ground here on the Somme achieve? Pretty well nothing. So why did Haig attack here? All generals, then and now, have to serve political masters. Haig was under orders to keep the French on side. After February 1916, he was left with no choice but to obey. It was then that the Germans launched their own massive assault on the fortress city of Verdun. The Germans' declared aim was to bleed France white by forcing her to pour troops into the defence of Verdun. Now the French insisted that Haig must attack as soon as possible on the Somme to draw off German forces from Verdun. But instead of 40 divisions, the French could only spare 5. And the August start date must be pulled forward to June or July at the latest. And so the scene was set for the Battle of the Somme, a battle to be fought for uncertain strategic reasons, probably in the wrong place and arguably at the wrong time. This is where the killing match would be staged. The front line ran between the towns of Albert, Bapaume and Péronne, with the Germans holding the area to the north and east. The British, with 22 divisions, would attack in the northern sector, with 5 French divisions to the south. A front of 25 miles in total. Almost everywhere, the old trenches have long ago been ploughed under. One small section of trench lines has been preserved, near Beaumont Hamel, scars in the earth which are still a powerful reminder of July the 1st, 1916. At 7:30 the whistles blew and they climbed out of this trench. One of the most enduring and heart-rending images of this battle is of young men walking slowly forward into withering machine gun fire and being slaughtered. So did the British soldiers simply walk from the trench lines here towards the enemy over there through withering machine gun fire? The answer, surprisingly, is yes. That's one of the legends that is true. In this situation, you rarely have three options. You run, walk, or crawl. The distance from the British trenches to the German front line here was about quarter of a mile. Sometimes it could be up to a mile or more. Could I, even in my younger days, have run uphill a mile, carrying 70 pounds of kit over ground churned up by shell fire, and still been fit to fight on arrival? The answer is no. And so the troops were ordered to take it easy at the beginning and save their energy for a last-minute dash when close to the German trenches. So why didn't they crawl and present less of a target to the machine guns? Once the British appeared, the whole of this area was under intense German artillery fire. Shrapnel shells bursting overhead, trench mortars. They were letting off everything they'd got. The less time spent crawling through the killing zone, the better. And the closer you got to the German trenches, the less chance you had of being hit by German shells. It wasn't blinkered stupidity that led commanding officers to order the men to walk forward. It was deemed to be the safest thing to do.
We know what killed people. We know from the medical reports and from the casualty returns. And in fact, it's a minority that are killed by bullets. It's about 39% of all British deaths are caused by small arms bullets. Now, that's either rifle or machine gun. We don't know which. The overwhelming number of deaths are caused by artillery, and that's about 58%. That's what does the killing. This is an artillery war.
What made it so difficult for those attacking rather than those defending? The Germans had dug in first, way back in 1914. That gave them a huge advantage. They'd bagged the best spots. Just as I would, they looked for the dominating ground, the easily defended village, the wood providing cover for artillery. British trenches were dug second, in effect laying siege to the enemy. In some sectors, when they finally captured the German trenches, the British were horrified to see how overlooked their positions had actually been. Why were the German defences so strong and so deadly? They'd been subjected to massive bombardment since the 24th of June. A staggering 1,700,000 shells were fired in total from more than 2,500 guns. The barrage went on round the clock at a rate of nearly 3 shells a second, night and day. The thunder of the guns was audible in London, 180 miles away. The list of targets for pounding had been meticulously prepared. Not only the German front-line trenches, but also their second and third-line defences, as well as supply routes and stores. For targeting particular strong points, there were huge 12-inch naval guns, built for a battleship but converted for mounting on a rail platform, hurling a shell weighing 1,400 pounds a distance of 12 miles. At the other end of the scale, there were what the troops called plum puddings, 2-inch trench mortars, firing a bomb weighing 60 pounds. You can see from the upright angle of the firing tube that it's meant to drop on a trench, probably no more than 400 yards away.